Today, we'll be taking a look at using cybersecurity frameworks as an enterprise architect. And we've got quite a good webinar for you. We'll be looking at a couple of key frameworks to start off with, and then also showing you how you can apply these in practice as well. But we'll get underway. So quick overview of the agenda. We'll take a quick look at the general term of cybersecurity, of course. We'll then dive into some of the well-known frameworks out there. We'll certainly mention a couple of these. We'll take a quick look at NIST in particular. We'll also then be taking a look at Essential 8, which is a relatively new framework out in the market, and we'll give you all the details on that and how it can be applied. And lastly, as mentioned, we'll be looking then at applying cybersecurity to EA and some of the best practices and tips that we have for doing that. My name is Liam Ryan. I'm the Southeast Asia Region Manager for Avolution, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Ryan Zhu, who will be taking you through the majority of the content today and also the demonstration. So before we jump into cybersecurity, I just want to give you a very brief background on Avolution ABACUS. I promise this isn't a sales pitch, so just to give you some context, we are an enterprise architecture tools company. So we've been leading enterprise architecture for the past 22 years. We're originally a spin-off of the University of Technology in Sydney, now a fully private company, and we have offices worldwide. So our major ones in Sydney, London, the USA, and of course we have smaller offices in some of the more regional areas. So Singapore, which we've just recently opened as one of our major offices, and we also have offices in Dubai, Canada, and South America as well. So if you're joining us from anywhere in the world, hopefully we've got you covered. But certainly keen to chat with you more later on as you're looking at cybersecurity and EA. We are, of course, also a leader in the Gartner MQ and critical capabilities analysis. So not just saying we're a leader by our own marker, we are reviewed by a number of independent analysts and review bodies out there. So please do check those out and see what you think. Of course, ABACUS is today being used by thousands of people all around the world. So we've got many, many people jumping in every day, logging on using ABACUS for a whole variety of different use cases. Some of those, of course, being cybersecurity. And we do have customers in over 100 different countries around the world as well. So where we stand out as a point of difference, and of course, highly relevant today, ABACUS does support an unlimited number of frameworks and notations. Some of the key ones you're probably already familiar with: TOGAF, Archimate, Business Process Modeling Notation, Accord, the Banking Industry Architecture Network framework as well, and as well as our cybersecurity ones. Again, a couple of those you'll see in just a moment. So NIST, SABSA, and Essential 8. That all said, I'll now hand over to Ryan.
Thank you, Liam, for the introduction. And so basically, the definition of cybersecurity should be quite clear to the audience. We can move to the next slide, basically just looking at some of the typical frameworks out there. So cybersecurity, you definitely know, is referring to the practice of protecting your information assets against the cyber threats. But although everybody knows about the concept, why still a lot of organizations are falling victim, we find that one of the major reasons is they are handling cybersecurity in a more intuitive and haphazard way. So by lacking a comprehensive framework, you always have some loopholes for other people to exploit. So that leads to the one key benefit of having a cybersecurity framework is that it really helps maintaining a robust cybersecurity posture. And some of the very popular frameworks out there are for example, NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which is still by far the most complete and ever-growing vulnerability library, and also the preventive measures. And then we also have, as Liam mentioned, this newer framework, which has been existing for years, of course, but still relatively new, which is called the Essential 8. It's actually a publication by the Australian Cybersecurity Center, which we will cover in detail. You also have other ones like, for example, CIS, which again is about like 18 mitigation strategies together with a lot of numerous security controls you should apply. You also have the ISO standards like 27001 and 2. If you are like a certified for those, it definitely gives you a boost in the posture to approach your customers and partners. And last but not least, we also have more like a comprehensive year-related cybersecurity framework, such as COVID, where you're basically just handling the risks, handling the IT infrastructure in a business approach, focusing on the risk impacts. So these are the typical frameworks. And as you can see, quite a few of these are actually government driven. There's a reason behind. We can go to the next slide. So, yep. And so as you can see from this graph, it's basically government organizations are increasingly targeted by those sophisticated cyber threats. And also with cyber attacks becoming more frequent and complicated. So as you see, over the years, the government agencies are facing more cybersecurity threats. And also statistics suggest there are also even more breaches. So that's actually why a lot of these frameworks are government driven. And also it's actually expectation out there, like non-government organizations should follow same level of cybersecurity protection if you are dealing with governmental agencies, or if you are dealing with customer who is closely state related. So that's why there's a big market for the cybersecurity usage inside your enterprise architecture environment. So the next thing we can introduce is really about the individual frameworks. The first one we like to cover is about NIST. So NIST is really a publication by the US National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is short for NIST, with the aim of helping organizations effectively manage and improve their cybersecurity posture. So what is the primary objectives? Really, the primary objectives of NIST is really to provide organizations with a structured set of guidances, standards, and best practices that empowers them to better understand, manage, and mitigate cybersecurity risks. It also serves as a very good roadmap of organizations to assess and actually strengthen their cybersecurity capabilities. We actually have a NIST webinar previously for an hour long, detailing how you can actually implement that framework from scratch inside ABACUS. So I won't spend much time on that, but instead the linkage to the video is here. You are definitely encouraged to have a look after, and you will receive this slide after the presentation. But what I do want to go through is the benefit of adopting NIST, but rather any kind of frameworks out there. So the first benefit of adopting NIST or cybersecurity framework inside EA is really that enables a seamless integration of the cybersecurity measures into the organization's overall business strategy. So by aligning the cybersecurity objectives with broader business goals, the organizations can create a cohesive and comprehensive cybersecurity strategy that resonates the organization's mission and vision. And actually, for each one of the benefit I'm going to cover, we will see something in very detail inside ABACUS later. So for the second benefit, is about the improved risk and management approach. So because you can now mapping security controls within your EA frameworks, so organizations can gain a better understanding of their cybersecurity compliance status and also strategically prioritize their cybersecurity initiatives based on their overall risk landscape. So without merging the framework with EA framework, you really lack the visibility to see such detail. And the third benefit is about the optimized resource allocation, because now by aligning NIST or Essential 8 with enterprise architecture, it streamlines the resource allocation for those cybersecurity initiatives. So by leveraging EA's insights, organizations can allocate resources efficiently, ensuring that cybersecurity investments are in line with the organizational strategic priorities and budgetary constraints, etc. Again, that requires the linkage between your cybersecurity initiatives and the traditional EA aspects of work. So that's why the integration is necessary. And the next one is about agility and adaptability. So by agility, we mean that NIST or Essential 8 is ever growing with new threats emerging. So organizations always know like what risk is out there to work on. So the framework is actually updating by the authority. And so if you adopt that, you also keep updated on your cybersecurity risks. So that's what we mean by the agility. And then by adaptability, we mean the change in your EA landscape is also taking into consideration of the cybersecurity compliance. So this cybersecurity framework really never gets out of date, never get outdated, because your enterprise architects always have this mind when they add new components to the architecture. They know that there's cybersecurity compliance in there. They actually have to create mapping for. And that also leads to the last benefit, which is about synergistic collaboration. Because as mentioned, you have enterprise architects working on cybersecurity. That's actually foster a synergy between cybersecurity and business team. So by breaking down the silos into actionable compliance tasks, the organizations can build a robust cybersecurity culture that aligns with the organization's core values and the missions, and ultimately strengthening their overall security posture. So these are the key benefits. And as mentioned, we will see each one of them in action inside ABACUS. But with all this said, NIST is actually not a focus for this demonstration, but rather we are introducing this newer framework called the Essential 8. So the Essential 8 framework is actually a publication by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, and it has developed prioritized mitigation strategies to mitigate cybersecurity incidents and to help organizations protect themselves against the various cyber threats. And as the name suggests, the most effective of these mitigation strategies are called the Essential 8. And these are actually like a application control, patching applications, configure Microsoft macros, user application hardening, restrict privilege access, patching operating systems, and multiple factor authentication. As you can see, this is really just like as essential as it gets for any organizations out there. So it's an essential and easy endpoint. So, but since it's still a cybersecurity framework, how is that actually different from other cybersecurity frameworks out there? We can go to the next slide and see. And it definitely have a lot of similarities, like all these cybersecurity frameworks have a list of controls you should be compliant with. It has like a progression of maturity level, etc. But rather Essential 8 is probably the easiest entry point, and it is essential. So as you can see from the table below, we compared Essential 8 to NIST CSF. You can see the number of mitigation strategies. NIST will have over 100 of that, and Essential 8, as name suggests, only 8. And so then for the number of detailed security controls or the preventive measures of a NIST, it will be over 1,000. And as mentioned, it's ever growing. And for Essential 8, it will be only 6 to 9, even if you adopt the most like level 3 maturity level. Although this number is definitely growing with more security threats added to the framework, but still you can see these two frameworks are really not on the same magnitude. So for any new organizations new to cybersecurity practice, Essential 8 is really the easier entry point. And it's essential because it's designed to protect Windows-based internet-connected networks. That basically means every single organizations out there. And you may start to question, okay, is that 69 preventive measures really enough? The answer is definitely no. So we can go to the next slide and see another big benefit of Essential 8, or the difference, is rather its extensibility. So if we could go to the next one, yes. As you see here, I definitely don't expect you to read the details, but you see just by the relative security effectiveness in the first column, you see some are categorized as essential, some are categorized as excellent, some as very good. So actually the most essential ones of the 8 is in this framework. Then once you are satisfied with every single security control out there, you can start to move on to adopt the excellent mitigation strategies, the very good mitigation strategies, and your security controls will exponentially grow because under each of these mitigation strategies, there will be numerous preventive measures. So yeah, that's another benefit. Like after you satisfy with the essential, it's still extensible to the other categories. And this can later actually be made more generic. Like even if you try to adopt some NIST cybersecurity controls, you can still categorize in the very similar way, whether they're essential or whether they are excellent. So that gives the flexibility of Essential 8 to be expandable and also integrate with any existing frameworks out there. Okay, that's really enough said about the Essential 8 in slides. We can now see the cybersecurity practice inside ABACUS featuring Essential 8 framework. And I will start sharing my screen from now. But before we jump to the two side of ABACUS, just one last slide to show you, which is the Essential 8 publication by ACSE itself. The reason I want to show that is, again, to show you how simple it gets. Like it only really have just 7 pages. And if you look down in here, first it's highlighted some key points for you. Like it's used for the Windows-based internet connection and networks. So that's why it's really essential. So the first suggestion of the implementation is really about selecting a target maturity level, because as you can see here, Essential 8 is actually a maturity-based framework. There will be maturity level 0, which basically means there's lack of security control. And it starts with the real like level 1, level 3, level 2, and level 3 security controls. And the suggestion by ACSE organization to decide their maturity level is really to consider the likelihood of being targeted and also the consequence of a cybersecurity breach. And the consequence is a very familiar like confidentiality, availability, and integrity assessment. And for the target level, it's really based off the desirability and the tradecraft level itself. So then if we scroll down a little bit, you will see it's actually listing you the full scope of the 8 mitigation strategies and the preventive measures inside each of the mitigation strategy. So we just take the first one, application control, as example to see the maturity level progression. So as you see in maturity level 1, it's just basically one control saying the execution of executables should be prevented from standard user profile. So that's it. And for maturity level 2, you see we still have the same like a preventive measure, but now it's actually getting stricter. So it's basically saying not only for the normal users, but for these executables, it's supposed to be prevented from all the workstations and the internet-facing servers. And all these executables should be organizational approved list, basically whitelisted. Then for the same security control as level 3, you see it's getting stricter, like saying not only internet-facing servers, but rather all servers are supposed to restrict the executables. And not only these kind of applications, but also the drivers are supposed to have a whitelist from the organization. And with the maturity level progress, you see there will be addition of new preventive measures. So that's actually, when I'm talking about 6 to 9, I'm talking about maturity level 3, only 6 to 9 preventive measures out there. So now we can really jump into ABACUS to see how ABACUS can help you to satisfy a complete adoption of Essential 8 from the decision of maturity level to the full implementation and profiling and the scoring and road mapping. So if you are new to ABACUS 2 site, what you are looking at is what we call the ABACUS Enterprise. As you can see, it's really just a browser-based application where you can create unlimited number of dashboards. And each dashboard can actually be used for different purposes. As you see, have different subcategories. And each dashboard can be tailored for your different stakeholders. So we will see a lot of that, but let's first look at the selection of maturity level first. So this diagram is basically just showing you what are the 8 mitigation strategies and the corresponding preventive measures under each strategy. So you see, by using ABACUS, you're actually able to heat map the landscape of the security controls by the a scoring algorithm, which later we will see. But you clearly can see now, for example, this preventive measure is having low score. This one is having better score because by the red or green color effect. And then back to the question of the maturity level. So in here, we are demonstrating using level 3, but you may question how we actually come to this conclusion. Again, this is something actually ABACUS can help you with. So as the documentation suggests, you are actually supposed to assess your level of being targeted and what is the impact of a breach. So this involves something what we call the risk survey or vulnerability modeling. So first, you can get your list of vulnerabilities from different sources. This can be from NIST, can be from ACSC, or it can be from other like threat intelligence websites. So first, you can assess for their source reliability because some source will be more reliable than others. So these should take a higher weighting in the scoring. Then you consider like what's the desirability and target level. So this can include like what's the attack vector, what's the attack complexity, whether user interaction is needed to decide how easy it can be breached. So these can be calculated based on this profile. And lastly, about the impact, like the availability, confidentiality, and integrity. So these can be used to calculate the impact. So you can imagine you can have a long list of vulnerabilities and come up with the algorithm and scoring. So in this case, by calculation, we see our target level is actually 9 out of 10. And the impact of breach will be 8 of 10. So that definitely gave us the suggestion that we should adopt maturity level 3 of Essential 8. So that's the first step. After you choose a security or maturity level, the next step is you can really work on importing the framework into ABACUS, which again is fairly straightforward. And we can see from here, for any organization, the first step of adopting this cybersecurity framework is really to integrate with your existing EA framework. As you see here, if I zoom in, you see I part my mitigation strategies from Essential 8, actually just in parallel with my generic strategy, because they are actually behaving very similarly and the organization way to treat them is quite similar. For example, strategy help to achieve some objectives. It's helping mitigating some risks. It is exactly the same way we treat mitigation strategy. It help with objectives and it mitigates cybersecurity risks. So that's why we can parallel in put them in parallel in the meta model. Then we can start to work on the preventive measures. Because for each of the measure, it's very detailed actions which can be applied on different endpoints. So the next step is really to build the compliance profile. Okay, now you see I connect my preventive measures to actors because I need to know who is actually responsible for that. I connect that to my processes because I need to say, okay, this process need to be compliant with this preventive measure. Also, it can be applied on some technology assets like applications or servers. So for example, let's say one control is saying you should patch internet-facing applications bi-weekly. So then I know this control is actually applicable on some of the internet-facing applications. So that's why I need to draw this connection. And similarly, if we are talking about patching operating systems, then this connection is drawn between the preventive measure and a server, no matter if it's on cloud or on-prem. So see, and also the compliance profile is can be expanded. So in this example, let's say, okay, I want to actually apply some preventive measures to the high-level services. For example, HR service, CRM service, Microsoft productivity service. So then we just need to draw the connection from my measure to that of the of the services. So you see, I can just easily create this connection. And my meta model is updated in this way. So now I can draw my connection between preventive measures to the high-level services. So that's how easily you can configure your meta model to accommodate the addition of cybersecurity framework. Then we talk about the profiling side. The first profile we can have is really about mitigation strategies on the top level impact. So for example, which objectives are these preventive measures support? Which risks are they mitigating? Which departments are they motivating? So all these high level mitigation strategies can be profiled. So for example, let's say this particular patch operating systems is supposed to be done by some department only focus on the infrastructure. So for example, let's say this way, I can just easily draw the connection just by choosing that from the list. So this way you can more easily profile your compliance on high level. And then in the granular level, talking about the 69 preventive measures, like how they are applied on different endpoints, it's also straightforward to build a compliance profile. So for example, in here, let's say enforce MFA for assessing important data. We know it's definitely applicable for some process and for some application. So for example, if I want to apply this MFA for some of the applications I'm using, I just select these applications from the list. Then now there's a compliance profile built in for this application and this preventive measure. So similarly, I can connect this preventive measure to the corresponding process as well if it's relevant. Okay, and then after you draw the compliance profile, the next step you definitely want to do is to give assessment on what is your current situation in the compliance. And this is where the scoring algorithm come in place. So you see here, I actually have an implementation score, which you see it's actually from a 0 to 4 scale by design. I will show you right away what's that about, but basically this field is calculated based on the compliance status. So now it's good time we jump to the other part of the tool set, which is what we call the ABACUS Studio. So in here, this is where the meta modeling, the configuration, the algorithms, the automation come into play. So this is only for the public users where there will be some complexity, but again, it won't affect the other like enterprise level users. So what you are looking at is a like example compliance profile. So let's say this preventive measure of perform and retain backups in coordinate and resilient manner is applicable on key like 10 key endpoints. Some of these are key applications. Some of them are key servers or key desktops. It definitely can connect to more, but I'm just using this one for illustration. So let me re-explain. This is a compliance profile. So basically, you have one preventive measure which is applied on 10 different endpoints. And as you can see, once it's applicable, there can be 2 situations, or you can actually define it to be more situations like compliant, partially compliant, or non-compliant, etc. But for simplicity, I just go with compliant or non-compliant. So for example, this one is supposed to be applied on this server, but it's non-compliant. And by contrast, this one is compliant. So in my scoring algorithm, it's fairly simple. If it's compliant, I want to give it a score of 4. If it's non-compliant, I want to give it a score of 0. So it will be eventually a 0 to 4 score for this exact preventive measure. So in our situation, you can see, but these 10 endpoints, 8 of them are compliant, 2 of them are non-compliant. So by calculation, these are 4 times 8 is 32, divided by 10 is 3.2. That's actually the algorithm behind. So we can actually look at how this algorithm can be very easily built in ABACUS. So first, if you are a programmer, you definitely will love ABACUS because ABACUS is using the language of C Sharp or VB to use the .NET framework, and don't get intimidated, but you can see here, oh, I'm using wrong one. This is the implementation score. So basically, as you can see, we just declare some of the constants for easier configuration. So we see, okay, these are the endpoints we want to apply the score on. And then you see we have two situations for the compliance. One is compliant, the other is non-compliant. For compliance, we want to score a 4. For non-compliant, we want to score a 0. Then you can see it's fairly simple script using less than 100 lines. And so after that, let's say if now I clear my score in here. I highlight the score and clear that. And now if I trigger my algorithm of this script under essential 8. So see, in short time, it's basically give me the result of 3.2. So that's how this is actually calculated based on your compliance profile. And you may wonder, if you are not like a programmer, can you still use algorithm? The answer is yes. We also have something in ABACUS which is quite unique and useful. That's called the no-code algorithm. So we can look at a quick example in here of my scoring algorithm. And you will see it's actually quite self-explanatory. So let's go step by step to see what's actually happening here. Let me close all these windows I actually don't need, so we have a bigger screen. Okay, cool. So basically you see, let me actually run that script. So we have a calculation result. So we can see step by step what's actually going on. So first step is you can see I get all the connections. Then I actually filter to the compliant. Then I multiply the 1 by 4 to give a score of 4. Then I can get the total count of connections and just do this kind of like a division, divide the total score by number of connection. Then I will have the 0 to 4 score. So we can see step by step. See here we have 1, like meaning it's compliant, 2 means non-compliant. Then I filter to ones, multiply 1 by 4, adding the sum together, count down the connections, divide the total score with the count, just to have the result. So see, it's actually quite straightforward. As long as you can build an algorithm using Excel, basically, you can replicate such algorithm inside ABACUS. Just use the drag and drop of the building blocks. So the even if you're not a programmer, you can still very easily use the algorithms we have out there to help you do the profiling. Okay, and this is the algorithm behind. So next thing we want to show is really how you can use the profile to facilitate collaboration. Okay, so for this dashboard, as the name suggests, is really the compliance profile. For each of the portlets, it's actually served for some purposes. So for example, we can look at the bubble chart, and this bubble chart is basically profiling all these preventive measures in terms of the implementation difficulty and the security benefit. So by using this one, we can see clearly, okay, for example, this one is having very easy implementation difficulty, and it's having high security benefit. So that's probably going to be our focus. So what I can do is just click on this one, and you can see the rest of the profile is basically filtered together with it. So again, I have my compliance profile with a owner of that. So then I can search for, so if, for example, this one called validate first time, like that. So I see this is the non-compliant. Okay, I can tag it, I can see who is tagged to. And okay, then I can really send this one, the copied link, and send to my stakeholder. So if I copy this one, and I try to like mimic if this user actually opened that dashboard from the link, he's actually seeing this filtered dashboard asking, okay, so basically this one is very easy to implement to be compliant, but it's not compliant yet. Could you please do something to make it compliant? Then it's giving us the boost in the score. So, okay, I think it's tagged to myself. I see, okay, it's last updated is in October. Yeah, now we are actually compliant with that. So I changed the status to compliant. I can update the date to the date of like today, the 12th. So that's good. So you see, that's how easily some user can come in and do some analysis and send the corresponding list to the owner to do some updating in the profiling. And you can see you also can have other KPIs, like for example, what's the score in each of the course of action. Because for Essential 8, it defines like prevent actions, limit actions, and data recovery and availability actions. So for individual one of these, you can give them a overall profile, like a compliance percentage, and we can clearly see the limit course of action is something we should really improve on. So let's say if we know, okay, we need to improve on here, we can actually drill down from the tree map. Okay, these are actually my limit extent of cybersecurity attacks. And by color suggest, we can see clearly which are the ones to be improved on. So I can see, okay, these are giving me red, and this one is definitely something we can improve. So for example, we drill down to this one, and you can see here are some of the compliance we should be working with. And here we see, okay, which one is that about? We can find that from this catalog and send to the corresponding stakeholder. And a dashboard isn't usually this busy. I try to include as many components as possible because I want to show actually how you can use them. For example, this graph view is also another good tool. You can do some ad hoc analysis. So for example, some like security manager can come in here and say, okay, since that limit extent of cybersecurity attacks isn't doing good, let's see what can be improved. So he can actually click on that, see these like a security mitigation strategies. So if I drill down to one of them, I can see which are the preventive measures. And this one clearly needs some improvement. So I can see, okay, this one is non-compliant. That's why it's having low score. So I need to send this one to someone to work on. Or let's say this one, it's okay, but still needs some improvement. Okay, we can see we have 2 compliant and 2 non-compliant. And I can just send this one to the server managers to make sure of the compliance. So as you can see, this dashboard is quite interactive. You can also filter by priorities. All these are actually like filterable just to narrow down to a actionable task, which you can share with your teammates. And also as the security manager. So if I come in here, search for my name, I can see which are the tasks assigned to me. And I want to do a quick check, like if anything updated earlier than October 2023, I want to revisit them to see if they are up to date. So now I have a customized list just for myself. And also I can save this as my default view. So next time I come in place, I come to the tool, this filter still exists, so I can always work on my intended list. So you see that's basically really resonating the benefit of like a facilitating the collaboration and the synergy within your organization. So enough about the current profile. By using the enterprise architecture tool, you definitely expect to see, okay, if we make some change, how we will be doing in the future. Are we going to be better? Are we going to be worse? So that involves something you should be very familiar with as enterprise architects, which is the gap analysis. So this is a typical example in here. We are looking at the same landscape, but rather we have this one in the target state in building the studio. Then in the target state, some experts can come in and suggest, okay, these are actually very simple to be complied with standards. So in the future, you are supposed to be compliant. So this person will go ahead and change the compliance status in the future as compliant. So that's basically making the scoring different from current state. So then we can publish this one in the dashboard. So any user working on the implementation can come in and see, okay, I can clearly see we are having major improvement in the limit of cybersecurity attacks from 57% to 80%. So I can actually look in this category. So I can first click on one high-level category. Like this is showing me all the the mitigation strategies. Or I can basically go to more granular level. For example, I click just on this particular mitigation strategy. You see the dashboard of the measures is also filtered together with it. So that's giving us like a very easy navigation for user to intuitively click and see what is the profile they need to work on. Or we can be more detailed. Let's say, for example, this particular like control is non-compliant in the current state, but it's compliant in the future state. So we definitely need to improve on that. So I can just click on this particular line and see, okay, this is the one actually non-compliant, and which are the endpoint to actually be compliant with. And then I can go to my profile in here. You see, this is non-compliant. And I will send to, okay, Joyce, please make sure this is compliant, because by our expert opinion, this is supposed to be compliant by end of 2023. I know you can also see the last update is quite outdated. So yeah, that's how you can actually model the future state architecture using the exactly same algorithm to come with the 2B score and identify the gap. Also give the actionable tasks to whichever item owner to make sure you have very easy traceability and accountability of your compliance. Yep, that's about the road mapping of your compliance. Last but not least, we'd like to also introduce the automation part of it. Because as enterprise architects, one key challenge you definitely face is about the manual work of creation. Like once you have the data, you have to manually create the diagrams. If your user is updating some data, then the diagrams need to be regenerated, etc. You can see it's almost impossible for you to keep updated of your diagram for each of the, for example, preventive measures. But by using algorithm, since ABACUS is data-driven, so anything, if you have a data, it can be visualized as diagram. So for example, we have a compliance profile in here with one preventive measure connected to different endpoints. But can we visualize that as a diagram? The answer is yes. So you definitely notice we actually have some linkage in this landscape. And if I just click on one of them, for example, this one is not compliant. So I click on that and you will see this solution view. So basically for this measure, what is the endpoint it's applied on, and what is the actor who is actually working on that. And you may find this one a bit like funky, like a box in boxes, because you can actually decide on the hierarchy level you want to present. And it's actually essential for the algorithm to run. We will see that how easily that can be done inside ABACUS as an example in Studio. So back to that diagram, which we call like a world according to, because it's basically showing like what's the surrounding components of this preventive measure. We actually have the script for that. We first see, okay, in the diagrams folder, we only have this, but after I generate this diagram using the script, you will see we have a new folder for the automated diagram. So if I go with my essential 8 folder, go with this world according to these measures. So what will be popping up is just a selection window asking, okay, which preventive measures do you want to create the diagrams on? I will just randomly select one of them. So if I click OK, you can see it's telling me diagram generated. And if you notice, this is a newly generated folder. And inside it, it's our solution view for the diagram we just created. So yeah, if I Control Z, you can see this diagram is gone. It's really just a single click. And we actually have a whole profile of that under the solution view. Like every single one of the measure is having a automatically created compliance profile, as you can see from here. As you can imagine, if you try to manually create a such diagram, for more than 60 preventive measures, it's undoable. Each diagram will take you at least 10 minutes to create and endless time to maintenance. But then using script, once the data is updated, the visualization will be automatically updated and generated. So that's definitely a great benefit you can utilize. And back to the, yep, actually, since we still have some time, I also want to show you some other automation you can have using the scripts. Also about creating diagrams. Okay, yeah, really, with data, you never are supposed to create patterned diagrams inside ABACUS manually. Anything can be automated. So for example, let's say even for this, we go back to the view of this landscape of the preventive measures. Let's be honest, even for creating such diagram will cost you at least 30 minutes or 1 hour, if not more, because I have been doing this one manually for quite some time before we have like a script a solution for that. And now let me show you how easily that can be done. So I have this layout diagrammer, and before doing that, let me show you. It's actually all from a single like template. So this is automatically generated. And this is just an overlay template. So you see what I want to overlay is just the preventive measures inside all these mitigation strategies. So as simple as that. What I just do is just go to this diagram layout and select architecture, which I'm working on. In this case, the production is go with this mitigation strategy template, overlay template. And that's it. I don't need to configure anything else. I just want to show overlay of the children and just be done with it. That's how simple it is. You see, it's automatically populated for me. But you can imagine how much time you can save for that. And as you can imagine, I can overlay other stuff from it. So just by using the same algorithm, I'll say, let's say I want to overlay all the outgoing connections. So what I do is I just go by the production as is. I search for the exactly, what's this called? It's called mitigation strategy. Okay, by diagram. Overlay template and overlay setting. This time I show overlay, but I will show just the alt connections because I want to see like which risk is mitigating, etc. So if I draw the diagram, you can see it's basically showing me the goals, the departments, and the risks is actually helping to mitigate. So see with the single template, we can just create all these diagrams just by user-defined selection, which is quite straightforward and time saving for your manual work. Yep, that's about one aspect of the algorithm of automation. The other part of automation is about the cutting edge machine learning function of ABACUS. So one big challenge you may have is actually building the compliance profile itself, like which are the endpoints we are supposed to connect to each of the preventive measure. So that's a typical question. And also, whenever you have new addition of the applications, some like preventive measure is supposed to apply on that. Which one is that? So all these questions can be answered by cybersecurity experts, but with existing data over time, it can also be answered by ABACUS machine learning. So one quick example in here is you can see, for example, I have first batch of data saying, okay, these are the applications to be applied for this preventive measure. And you see we actually have a security benefit score. This score is actually based on the security benefit of these applications. So let's say if these applications are having a medium score for the business benefit, then the security benefit is also medium. So machine learning is actually able to capture the data pattern over time. So if we hover over this magic wand, you can see it's basically suggesting us by the observation, the suggestion is actually number 5 instead of 6. and it's actually having a confidence score, let's say 83% chance it should be 5 instead of 6, because by the data observation the machine learning is having. Then you see we can also have way around, like we basically can predict which applications the machine learning is actually the security measures can be applied on. I think I might have some update in the data, so that's why it's still training the machine learning. Let me double check. So if I go with Ask ABACUS, yep, so you can see the training session isn't completed yet. And so that's why it's not giving me a suggestion in here yet for connections. But eventually, as you can imagine, with the observation of pattern, machine learning is able to tell me which application is supposed to comply with this mitigation strategy. So for example, this one is talking about MFA. So machine learning is actually going to suggest me to apply on all these authenticators the organization is having. Yep. So that's all about automation as well. Up to this point, we have a complete coverage of the Essential 8 or any cybersecurity framework inside ABACUS. Just a quick recap. First, ABACUS can help you to decide a maturity level just by profiling and scoring your risk posture and risk exposure and target level, etc. Once the maturity level is selected, you can start to build your compliance profile and integrate that with whatever frameworks you are currently using. Then after you have a compliance profile, you can start to build the no-code algorithm or the script algorithm inside ABACUS to actually have a score effect and build a current state of your compliance status and use the compliance profile to actually facilitate collaboration between the cybersecurity team and different business team in the organizations. And then next, you want to aim for the future and identify which are the aspects to improve, build that improvement in the future state, and close the gap by assigning the work to the corresponding people in charge. And last but not least, by using ABACUS, all this manual creation of diagrams, it can be automated by using ABACUS scripts. And by using ABACUS machine learning, Ask ABACUS, the machine learning is actually able to learn from data and collect the knowledge you have and help to build a compliance profile in the long run to save a lot of manpower and have a lot of higher reliability in assessment. Yep, that's the end of the demonstration. Now we can open to any questions you have.
Excellent. Thanks, Ryan. That was a brilliant overview, and thank you for the walkthrough as well in ABACUS. It was great to see that. So as Ryan mentioned, we are now at the end of the webinar. We do welcome any questions as well. And if you would like to see a personalized demonstration of ABACUS, perhaps how cybersecurity can be applied to your enterprise architecture, feel free to scan that QR code on the right-hand side there, or drop us an email as well. We're more than happy to schedule something with you. Of course, we will take questions now as well. So we've got a couple that have come in fact, already. So first one here, Ryan, you might want to take this one. So do you support ISO 27001?
Yes, we do. I think that's also like in the list. Basically, that's a compliance status, also like a checklist of what you are supposed to do. And you can just model that by connecting each of the compliance status to what people is responsible, what process is out there, what documentation is there, what technology is there to support, etc., to show like a comprehensive answer, like why you are in compliance with ISO 27001.
Okay. Next question here says algorithm and profiling could be done in Excel. What's the advantage of using ABACUS?
Yep, that's definitely a good question. So you are totally correct. ABACUS, like algorithm and profiling, isn't supposed to be like a complicated, but rather it should be as simple as possible to be adopted. So yeah, it's definitely replicable in Excel. In fact, we have seen some reputable like consulting firms out there providing their service in Excel, because they have to do this in a tool agnostic way. But you definitely can guess how do I see this work before. It's actually a customer turn to us to actually wanting to migrate this solution into ABACUS, because for one major challenge of using the Excel is first, by a Excel building the formula, some tabs will be needed just for the data, some tabs will be needed for the diagram drawing, data validation. All these tabs actually need a lot of explanation, which confuse users, and which column you are supposed to fill in what. So all this explanation is already overwhelming the user. And then after you have the finished work, the maintenance is also a key part. Where do you store them? How do you share them? If there's update of data, how do you make sure people always have the updated data instead of there will be data conflict? So that's actually the benefit of ABACUS, to have a single data repository. Whenever the user see the result, that's actually the updated data. That's going way beyond Excel. Even if you shared it collaboratively, there still will be lag in data update and generation of the algorithms. So yeah, there's no magic in ABACUS. Actually, less is more. We prefer simple solution. But then just by having single repository and the collaboration between users, there will be it's more intuitive for user to use and a lot easier to maintenance.
Okay, so another question here. Can we import the organization-specific security compliances?
Yep, definitely good question. So as you can see, Essential 8 is already a kind of bespoke way where you can expand on. So for any other more generic security control list, you can definitely import into Essential 8 already, give them the same category as you do for Essential 8. And also, even if it's not cybersecurity controls, like generic risk controls or data compliance controls, we also have solutions inside ABACUS, for example, GDPR in Europe, and also, for example, PESTEL framework by assessing external risk factors. All these frameworks are already inside ABACUS. So later, in case you want to adopt some of them, we have existing solution for that.
So another question here, I think you may have just answered it as well. So does ABACUS have cybersecurity implementation examples of other regions and countries, since there can be different local regulations?
Yes, definitely. So we do have regional specific frameworks. Like for example, Essential 8 is more targeted for Australia and Australian associated organizations. We have GDPR for Europe. We have NIST, which is used by mostly American organizations. And also there will be a non-cybersecurity or a integrated frameworks. For example, in some Australian states, we are working with some project. Also in India, we have some publication by the Reserve Bank of India on cybersecurity, and we are working on a framework for that as well for the local sector. So yeah, we are always working with customer on some local level of implementation to be bespoke and compliant with any regulations.
Okay, looks like we might have time for just one more question here. I realize we're at the hour now, but I'll just try to fit this one in quickly. How can ABACUS assist in third-party assessments of information security controls?
Yep, that's a great point. So ABACUS does accommodate customized modeling. So in case you are independent a service provider for your customer, if you already have some solution in mind, so for example, what technologies you are supposed to use, what people are supposed to get involved, what process need to be there if they are not, what documentations have to be produced, or any other aspects of the enterprise architecture, what people or entities, etc. So all these can be customized inside ABACUS to create such connection. And you can use your intellectual property, like your calculation algorithm, replicate it inside ABACUS. So you basically move whatever your existing framework from Excel into ABACUS to help with reusability and also selling your solution to wider audience.